Hello, this is Recovery Diaries in Depth. I'm your host, Gabe Nathan. Thanks so much for joining us. We're very happy to have you here. We are so lucky and grateful to have as our guest on the show today, Jacquese Armstrong. She's the author of Blues Legacy and Birthing Yourself Naturally, Motivational Reflections on a Mental Health Journey. She was the recipient of the 2019 Naomi Long Madgett Poetry Award, and she has a new book coming out. It is called Fabricating a Home, 'Cause You Never Had One. Each week, we'll bring you a Recovery Diaries contributor, folks who have shared their mental health journey with us through essay or video format. We want to see where they are on their mental health journey since initially being published on our website. Our goal is to continue supporting our diverse community by having conversations here on our podcast to follow up and see what has shifted, what has changed, and what new things have emerged. We're so happy to have you along for this journey. We want to remind you to follow our show for new and back episodes at recoverydiaries.org. There, like the podcast, you'll find stories of mental health, empowerment, and change. You can also sign up for our mailing list there so you never miss a new podcast episode, essay, or film. And you can find this podcast pretty much anywhere you get your podcasts. We appreciate your comments and feedback about our show. It helps us improve, make changes, and grow. And of course, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Jacquese Armstrong, I am so delighted to have you as a guest on Recovery Diaries in Depth. Thank you for spending some time with me.
Thank you for having me. It's great.
So there's a question that I really wanted to start out with, but I want to qualify it because I had this weird experience growing up. I had this bizarre history teacher in 11th grade who, anytime he wanted to know what, quote, Jews thought of something, he would turn to me and he would go, "Hey, Gabe, you're Jewish. What do Jews think about," and fill in the blank. It could be the Vietnam War or anything. And I felt, I was a junior in high school and I felt bizarre being singled out in this way and kind of being asked to speak for I don't know, everyone in my shared faith. And there are lots of different views and opinions about lots of different things. And so I found myself coming to you wanting to know not about what is it like to be a Black person living in America, in today's America with mental illness, but what is your specific experience? What does that feel like on a daily basis living in 2026 today? Because you gave us a snapshot of this in 2016 when you wrote your essay for us, and a lot has changed. And I was reflecting on that as I was rereading it, getting ready for today. So that was a very long intro and wind up to that question. And I'm very curious and anxious and interested in your answer.
For me specifically, I would say it would vary from person to person. For me specifically, I started a detox in April 2023 from my meds, and I've totally, I'm not on any meds at all as of 2 months ago because I had a baseline for a long time. And I moved down to Mississippi from New Jersey during the pandemic. And so I want to say that, even though I don't feel like all the amenities I had in the mental health community in New Jersey, because they have all kinds of organizations and everything like that going on, and I was involved in a lot of that. I found finally a therapist that saw me, that could see me. She was culturally, cultural. Not only is she Black, but she understands me, because there's a lot of different types of Black people. And sometimes just having a Black mental health person is not, you have to click. And I was just lucky that we clicked, and I found a prescriber that clicked, and she agreed to help me on this journey, and everything has changed. Everything has changed. And I just have this clarity. And I have days where I still go through because of the detox, I think. And a lot of things I call them trauma fires, put them out along the way as I was coming back through. I describe the experience as being born again as an adult, because I had been medicated for so long. I had been in that medication bubble. I was essentially in my 20s. I had to go from scratch and relearn life. A lot of concepts about life. So, everything is different. and I don't subscribe to quote unquote mental illness, not for me anyway. I think it's a pejorative term for anybody, really.
What gave you the courage? So, I mean, you were diagnosed in your early 20s and then put on hardcore medication, right? You were basically given, if not a death sentence, something damn near to it, basically telling you you're never going to work, you're never going to finish school, you're never going to do anything really. And you're going to be on this stuff forever. Just to be able to maintain a very basic level of functioning. So you're told all of this stuff very, very early on in your early adulthood. Fast forward to 2023, when you decided, okay, I want to kind of break free from this. What gave you the courage to even think that was possible, or to dare to try that? Because that's scary. I take a medication for anxiety. I'm scared to get off. So how did you get to that point where you felt like, okay, this is something that I want to do. I want to try this.
Okay. So since the very beginning, they've never gotten me to a place where I was comfortable with me. I was always going through. I was always having suicidal ideas every day. I just lived like that. And then in the pandemic, I lived by myself and I had no family around. And so I was at the end of my rope. I mean, I'm just going to be honest. My therapist at the time had broken down my time into like 15-minute increments so that she could check with me during the week. And there was nothing more you could do, because if you went to the hospital, you'd end up in the state hospital. And I wasn't going to do that. I wasn't going there. So I went and moved to Jackson, Mississippi, where my parents were here teaching at Tougaloo College. So I figured, worst comes to worst, I could stay in the house with them, because they're used to me. They know what's going on until whatever blows over, right?
Right.
In the meantime, it was like a still small voice that just asked me, just like, what's under all that crap now? I mean, is it even relevant anymore? And I was lucky enough to have a mental health team that would follow me down that rabbit hole and give me support while I was doing it. It was very, very hard, but I'm so glad that I did, because I look back in my 20s. And even though, it started out with like this African man dictating poetry to me while I was doing my engineering work. Now, that sounds like quote unquote psychosis, but is it really? Is it just part of a creative response to a person who is having an identity crisis? And that is what I see when I look back at me in my 20s. An identity crisis, not schizophrenia, not needing, like major tranquilizers and ECT. They screwed me up from the beginning. I had no choice. I had to go down that rabbit hole. And I really believed in the medical model until very recently, maybe 7 years ago. I didn't know whether it was for me or not. My thing is, how do they know? How do they know you? I mean, they tell you you have a chemical imbalance. How do they know? And they can't answer that.
Right.
And there's a lot of things they can't answer about the brain and the psyche and the emotions. And I just feel like I was bamboozled.
There's even a lot of things that they don't know about psychotropic medications. You see
Very
it on the
much
commercials
so.
all the time. The mechanism of this medication is not fully understood. They don't really know how it works.
Another thing is a lot of those psychotropics, what they're treating you for, the underlying, what do you call it? The adverse thing that happens when you take it.
Side effects.
Side effects, yes. The side effects is the same as what they're treating you for. So it may be starting a spiral. You don't know that. They don't think about that. And I just know that since I've been off of it, true, I'm a lot older, but I did have to go through everything I've been through since then and think it out again and get right with it. So I don't know. It's a question mark in my mind. I did, if anybody's interested, I wrote an op-ed about African Americans being diagnosed with schizophrenia. I use a little of my own background in it, and I talked to a psychiatrist that had done a research paper on it. It might be of interest to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very much so. And I think, you're talking about the medical model and how flawed it is, and you're talking to someone who is a former participant in it. I used to work at a psychiatric hospital, and seeing up front so many poisonous attitudes from the staff, so much pejorative language that I participated in. You learn it, you use it, because you want to gain acceptance in the culture, and you don't want to be the one causing a problem. So you become part of the machinery, right? And you see this pyramid, and the psychiatrist is at the very, very, very top. And you can see it so clearly. Who's being paid the most is the psychiatrist. Who's spending the least amount of time with the patients? The psychiatrist. Who's being paid the least? The psych techs. Who's spending the most amount of time with the patients and gaining the most information about them? The psych techs. Who is the least listened to? The patient first is the least listened to. And then after them, it's the psych tech. Nobody wants to hear from them. So it's the inpatient system is so fucked up and so traumatizing to the staff, to the patients, everybody. I mean, everybody in there is traumatized, I think. And we build these places as places of healing, And I was thinking about this. I just had this random thought this morning when I was out with my dog, that one of the most common things that I heard from patients was, this place is just like jail. This place is worse than jail. The only thing that's not like jail about this place is they let you smoke indoors. And I was thinking to myself, like, you hear it once or twice, okay, but by the 300th time you hear a patient say it, that should be sounding an alarm bell that we are no better than jail. In many instances worse. And we're snowing patients with medication so that they're not a problem to us. Just blunting their affect, blunting their emotions. And I don't know. It's just awful. And on top of that, when you were talking about diagnosing Black people with schizophrenia disproportionately, I also saw it with diagnoses like borderline personality disorder. So that was being a diagnosis that was being doled out like candy to women. But hardly any male patients were diagnosed with borderline. And it's like, are we looking at that? Are we looking at why? Why is that? Why are we segmenting populations and saying, okay, these diagnoses are for you, but not for you. These diagnoses are for you. There's like no critical thinking happening in there. There's no reflection. There's no accountability for sure. And no responsibility, I think. It's what 11 years after leaving, I still think about this stuff and I don't know. It's just really hard to reckon with.
I know I wrote in one of my essays, this is what you would think. One would think that to prevail from a traumatic space, to recover, you get freedom, creativity, and encourage autonomy. But here you don't. You get locked down. You get somebody who is or wants to be in total control over your, I have visited doctors in the beginning and said, I'm sorry, I can't work with you. And they look at me like I'm crazy because they have barely looked at my file, and yet they're going to tell me what I need to do, what type of medication I need to take. I had one lady, I was already on something that was not sedative. I had gone to that route. I had we got to get me something non-sedative. I can't do this anymore, right? And she wanted to, right off the bat, put me on some old, and I knew they were old, starts with an R. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Risperidol?
I think it was Risperidol. It was like a Haldol or something like that. And I knew it was sedating. She says, it's not sedating. And I'm like, no, I don't want to change from what I have. I'm doing all right, right? She said, well, if you're going to come with me, you're going to have to take this. It's my way or the highway. And I just had to leave. And it's hard to find a psychiatrist when you're on Medicare, if you're on a disability. It's hard for this. And so I think that the whole nation needs to, this is not the right time to have this conversation in this environment, but we need to rethink this whole thing because we're wasting so much human potential. We are wasting so much creativity. It doesn't make sense. I mean, I think about, I'm still trying to get over the concept of losing 40 years of my life to this. That's something very hard for me to take because I was a person who had goals and dreams, and they were just snuffed out without a second thought.
Yeah, it's like being wrongfully incarcerated.
No, we can't kill you today, so, we're going to throw you away for the rest of your life.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was back in the 80s. I'll give them a little bit of slack. They had no, today it's much easier to find some alternatives, if you look around for healing, other than going down that hardcore drug thing, I do, I got it's funny because I kind of came up with this concept on my own, this arts and healing concept. And I used to make workshops, and I even started doing workshops for a nonprofit for that, out in the community. And I actually thought I had made that up, because it just came to me and it was working for me. And so I wanted to express it with my peers and, get them involved because they were getting the same kind of, quote unquote treatment that I was, and then I found out that expressive arts is a real thing. it's a discipline. You could get a doctorate in it, and basically it's the same premise of everything that I had figured out for myself. I got a certificate for social emotional arts in April of 2023. That's one thing that helped me through too.
So you said this, it's not the right time to be having this conversation. And I'm guessing that you mean politically.
Yes.
When you say that. And in my opinion, it's the exact time to be having this conversation because history is being erased in this country. Creativity is being erased in this country. Truth is being erased in this country. Morality, empathy. I keep going back to, I tell this little story all the time. I was at a car show a long time ago, I guess during the first debacle with this guy. And I saw a father holding his little son's hand walking through the car show, and he had a T-shirt on, and it said, Trump 2024, fuck your feelings. And I was just like, wow, we're in deep, deep shit. If that's what it is, and it's far worse than that. But I was thinking about what kind of role model does that little boy need to be able to grow up and not be a piece of shit like his father clearly is? You know what I mean? He needs cuddle your feelings. He needs hold your feelings. He needs express your feelings. He needs create with your feelings, feel your feelings. And we are so, 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 so far away from that. And part of the reason why I was really excited to have you on is because you're so expressive and you're such an empath, and it comes through in your writing so powerfully and beautifully. And when I met you in Cape May years ago, it was so palpable in person at the writer's retreat. And I love that you're writing a lot and publishing opinion pieces, and you have this new book coming out, and you're not shutting up. You're not hiding. You're not turning off the tap and saying, well, I'll turn it back on in 2028 when it's safer. Fuck that. It's unfortunately, it's up to people who get it to not stay silent and not turn it off, and to be encouraging that kind of connection. And again, you wrote your essay for us, which I'm going to have you read in a couple minutes during the first
Okay.
Trump debacle, and now here we are during the second, and you're, I mean, I don't know. I just want to know how you're coping with all of that today.
Okay. That's part of trying to heal, because you're like, okay, so I come out of this 40-year hole. I devise a ladder myself to get out of this hole, basically, because no one was helping me get out of it. To this, really?
Right. Yeah, great.
And things are just abundantly clear about everything. And you have to learn to deal with it, you know? I had some trepidation about this book coming out, really, because it's got a lot of Black history metaphors in it. It alludes to going through some times in different administrations. And to tell you the truth, last week I was like, I had like a sustained panic attack, and I didn't know what was going on. And I was like, how can this be happening? And I just had to kind of I was snapping off at people, and which is not like me. And I kind of got to the place where I could identify, you're scared. Basically, you are. You're scared. Anybody goes through that with work that's vulnerable. It's like, I really don't have anybody that's really intensely behind me on this. I don't feel like I do. It's like my thing. And it's a calling. It's a calling. It's like I said to myself when I was in my 40s that, if I have to go through this, why wouldn't I extend to other people the information I have? Everyone should do that, but everyone's not going to do that. And people look at you like you're crazy because you do that. But I feel driven to do it. And so I do. It's my assignment. It's part of my assignment.
That's part of your assignment, whether people are looking at you like you're brave or looking at you like you're crazy, or whether
Exactly.
you're scared today or brave tomorrow, or, shit in your pants on Saturday. You have to do the work and find some way to be okay. And I have to imagine that the work is also part of what helps you be okay, knowing that you're responding to that call, that you're being creative, that you're resisting in the way that you can. I would hope that helps.
Yeah, if I had not written that memoir, I wouldn't be here. I really wouldn't be. And so how can I deny talking about it and trying to put it out there and tell people about it? Because it was my ladder mechanism bringing me out of that hole.
Yeah. And it's just an incredible way of looking at creativity as building scaffolding to get you out of something. And I would love to turn to the piece that you wrote for us a long time ago. Okay. I think it was about 10 years ago.
It was.
And it is called Epiphany, Radical Rainbow. A middle-aged woman of color lives with mental illness in America. And would love to hear you read it in your own words. And after that, a reaction that you had to rereading it for this show.
Okay. So Epiphany, Radical Rainbow. There's nothing more cathartic than paths being made and changed inside the brain. Thank God for neuroplasticity. I had the blues on crack. The kind where you wrap yourself around yourself in a corner so tight you can't rock, can't produce tears, and a straitjacket looks inviting. Lucidity goes out to play. The stark bareness of trees in the thick wind reminds you of a dinosaur bones on an exhibit in a small room of the Carnegie. Frightening. My thoughts on loudspeakers so loud like the cars rolling through the streets. I expect the thought police momentarily. So I moved my lifeless shell through the town by pulling the levers in the control room behind my eyes. The machine was outdated. I saw black and light. I had convinced myself, especially in the aftermath of the 2016 elections, that life, as I had previously anticipated embracing, was over. I had planned to start a career in inspirational writing and speaking from a mental health perspective. Now I feared the Gestapo would come. It's very disheartening to watch the country fall apart as you're coming together. The pressure is mounting up and you just want to coast a little. Having walked through hell on your hands and knees looking for your name for 3.5 decades. I started this journey at 20, my junior year at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville. I was studying chemical engineering and was involved in an internship program at a chemical company. The financial security I may have had, I still mourn for. But I stopped sobbing about it. I have a BA in journalism that I paid for in blood on the revolving door plan. The only other thing I could do was write. I spent 1 quarter in school and the next in the hospital for 2 years until I finished. If you remember the 80s, the decade when I lost my mind, the 80s were a sweet, lucrative period. Optimism and that dreaded of all words promise were the cloak I enveloped myself in. Even after the doctor told me I would never finish school and basically never have a normal adult life, I still ran. I ran like the wind. My brain had been hardwired for success since I was little, and I could not conceive of not having it or even changing my definition for it. But I was young and strong and popped back up very swiftly like a weevil when life punched me in the gut daily. I'm a dreamer, and without a dream, my life may as well be over. So I heard no word the doctor said and played games with my situation. I said, when I finish college, this will go away. When I get a job as a journalist, it will go away. When I move to a place I like, it will go away. But then I found myself in D.C. with an entry-level journalism position and a BA, and the voices were still arguing in my head and plotting for my demise. It was such a sweet time, though. Everyone was happy. Something happened as the decade progressed. There was a dark veil that enveloped me, and I couldn't handle the day-to-day, especially reporting. A certain nastiness appeared in the atmosphere. It may have just been my paranoia, but its vibe wrestled with my psyche until all hell broke loose to the point that I found myself in a hospital bed the next morning after a horrifying first panic attack episode. However, the American scene really is hardcore now. So I doubt if anyone would want to listen to inspirational vibes or even understand what they're for. I find that I am once again questioning a newly bought dream. This epiphany was exacerbated by a subtle, total rejection of my services for a job I sought because of my age. I asked to be considered for a peer position in a program that treated individuals in a younger demographic. They didn't even want to hear what I had to say. They wanted young blood and energy. I am now 1 month into 55. This is America, need I say more? In the mental health game, to be middle-aged and still experiencing quote-unquote psychotic episodes is to be pushed to the side and told stability is enough for you. That is until the nursing home can fit you in. Those are the foibles of being on disability at middle age. It has always been my main goal to be rid of that monthly reminder and replace it with my own, but I haven't worked full-time since 2002. My only way to make it out in my right mind is to figure out something on my own using the wisdom amassed from living this long. Why are we so obsessed with youth and speed anyway? We never consider using wisdom over whimsy. That's why the country's falling apart. There is no substance. I really needed 3 fights to get my blood boiling, though. So I add age to living while Black in America and having thought and mood disorders. Then, no, I'm female. That makes 4, since the country was overwhelmingly proved to be misogynistic in our tendencies this last election. Along with age, I am dismissed as a person of color, a person with lived experience, a poor person, and a female. I am an intersectional nightmare. Mostly as a person of color writing poetry from historical context, I'm dismissed by the literary mainstream. But having a different reality, I am also dismissed by the Black community mainstream. Being a middle-aged, single, Black female writer of limited cash flow who discloses mental health challenges in speeches makes men run. It's the reality thing that they bought into that I refuse to let fester my soul. As far as I'm concerned, the area under the bell curve shelters automatons who bought into the system hook, line, and sinker, whether it serves them or not. They've never had to think for themselves. They blindly follow the guidelines for what's supposed to be. I have a statement I say to myself. I'm a warrior. But even warriors sometimes have the wearies. When you wonder if all the bullshit you dreamed up is ever going to play one day. The wearies, enticing your mind to turn on itself and feed like a zombie on human prey. The wearies, that state that forces you to confront the mirror cracked to pieces at 20, complete with cobwebs, that you were willing to be whole on a wish. It's when you realize no matter how young and vital you feel, society has nailed you in a coffin times over, and you're still breathing. But weariness is not allowed for the same portion of travel in a severe and chronic mind. Keep going are the only 2 words I've ever known. They navigate my every move. Never mind that every idea in my head that was pursued never came to fruition. Never mind the stares and banter. Never mind the blood dripping from the sun, the deep blue solitude. In the wake of this age thing, I had to assess how much I wanted life. When you've had the odds stacked against you for so long and never had a payoff, and then you realize you're middle-aged with nothing to show for it but your breath, it starts you thinking. I've lived my entire life on the Weeble principle. Weebles wobble, but they don't fall down. It takes longer for it to kick in now. But there is a crevice on my brain designating this specifically. Because just then, the path I was walking on, the terrain in my head changed course. I'm not easily intimidated after all I've been through, especially when principle is involved. You can't tell me I'm inferior based on race or mental health status. I won't be swept like that. Like I said, it's just one more battle to add to the fight. So I'm putting the world in check. I will not let anyone, including me, dismiss my validity based on age either. This society needs to view age through a truer lens and capitalize on wisdom instead of dumbed down entertainment, deceit, folly, and reality TV. Most can see where that road has taken us. Those who have traveled the raggedy mile and refuse to have their messages, tendencies, ideas, and the pursuit of those ideas truncated possess such a wealth of knowledge, strength, and wisdom. It is unfathomable why you wouldn't want to use it. We've seen the cycle pass a couple of times. The younger set thinks they created it. Some reach an apex later in life. These are the people who have more to offer. These are the ones with thoroughness of thought in their pursuits. Personally, I hope I don't reach that apex until I draw my last breath. Okay, I have a thought disorder, and I'm middle-aged, not a self-imposed description. But I do have a thought disorder that manifests itself in quote-unquote psychotic and delusional thinking patterns at times. And so it is diagnosed with that god-awful term schizophrenia. Well, I've outgrown the terminology and the world's self-righteous iron-cast judgments. I decided to grow weary of that. I decided to grow weary of the fact that the diagnosis word schizophrenia is the brunt of most mental illness jokes, the supposed cause for all mass murders, and the fact that no one really understands what the symptoms are. They think it's a multiple personality disorder. Well, I decided to put them in check as well. I have a rainbow mind on a color-induced journey that never ends. What more could you ask for? So when I first read this essay again the other day after 10 years, I cried halfway through. Like I said, I started a detox journey from the psychotropics I had been prescribed in various shapes and forms for more than 4 decades in April of 2023. It took me a little more than a year to get to a minimal baseline of meds that were designed to hold me. And as of about 2 months ago, I have totally detoxed. I have come to understand so much more about my so-called mental illness and the labels they bestow on anyone they can't understand at that moment in time. Those of us who no longer present as quote-unquote normal at any given time. I'd like to share a poem I wrote a few years ago that sort of sums it up. It's in my newly released memoir. I call it The Colonial Theory of Mental Health Anguish. I was born on the intersection of clarity and injustice, mortification and rage, but told to stuff my overly large octagon into a square. And when it wouldn't fit, they came with a hammer. I saw stars, so they brought out a book and gave me a diagnosis. I'd like to share one more poem right now. This poem is not in my memoir, but it's in a collection of poetry about my mental health journey that I'm still looking for a publisher for. And this is called Truth Equals Stages, Approaching Healing. Stage 1. My first psychiatrist was a white-haired white man with blue flecks in his eyes that dared to stare mine down as he told me my life was essentially over at 20. I was a chemical engineering junior at a major state university who had completed 2 internships and mapped out my future for 20 years. I did not want to hear that. He said, "You will never finish college, and you will never work." Those were the exact words that came from his mouth. I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear that. You will never finish college. I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear that. You will never work. I don't want to hear that. You big fat mother trying to sever my soul from myself, giving me no empathy and press us cold staring with a cigarette in your mouth, doping me up when all I want to do is finish my engineering degree. The fire under my butt is already lit. You can't tell me what's possible in the future. Psychiatrist as God is not an understanding for me. Maybe I won't finish my chemie degree, but I'll get another one. Because I will never let a mother like you beat me. Stage 2. Decades later, my brain talks to my heart, saying, "You always leave me with the thankless jobs. the methodical folding of the rope you dangled over the abyss from, testing the tensile strength of the tightrope for your life's walk, stocking the books on endless shelves of meticulously executed plans that never came to fruition, making sure you have tissues. I sit through the job, whatever you do at the time, retail journalist, workshop creator, telephone marketer, and have those tissues ready. After the clock ticks, we can leave. Drive you to the cafe so you can sit and drink and deposit eggs from paper to laptop. Drive you to your therapist or the nearest park with water. When you see reds through green and only a flow can soothe with Coltrane vibes. A Sonia Sanchez poem. Singing blues with sister trees. A lake ripple, a God gratitude. The beauty of raindrops on the skin. You taught me that. I said we were a Rambo brain and a Bambi heart. Maybe I got it wrong. So I hang around till the next time we flow. Stage 3. My God has no voice. For me to have heard him, I would have to speak his language. That is mathematical creation-inspired science linguistics unknown to man. He holds the answer to simultaneous equations that guide the universe and keep us. I trust him.
Thank you so much for taking us on that journey back 10 years ago to when you first wrote that piece for us, to your reaction to it, to these other pieces. Your writing is so beautiful and powerful, and I'm so glad that you're sharing it. I think it means so much, and I think it holds so much meaning and power for other people. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can you talk to me a little bit about stage 3? When you were reading it, and when I was reading it before, I was so interested to hear about your thoughts about God and religion and spirituality, because so much of that it's intertwined with so much of human experience, and with mental illness. And I'm thinking again about like that medical industrial complex. As soon as God is mentioned or religion is mentioned by a patient, immediately it's like, oh, religiously preoccupied. You can like see it in there. So can you just talk to me a little bit about your relationship with God and religion and spirituality, and where you are now, and maybe how that's evolved over time?
First of all, I feel like creativity is like a download from the creator. It's not something you're just a conduit, You're just how he chose to let that conversation enter through. It may just be for you. It may not be just for you. I choose to try to publish mine because I feel like, it may help somebody out. I wish somebody had helped me out,
Mm-hmm.
As far as what I said about God and simultaneous equations, I had always thought of my life in terms of equations. I guess because I was in engineering and I was doing so much math and science. And it's like you set up these equations and variables for your life. But when you're young, you don't realize that some of those variables are going to be off. Some of them are going to be put in there that you didn't even ask for or define or even know what the definition is. I can't exist without knowing that there is a plan. And I believe there is a master plan. And I believe in God. And I believe in Jesus Christ. And like I ended it with, I trust him. That's my secure thought.
Mm.
I trust him.
And I guess when I asked you earlier about like what is helping you get through this just like ceaselessly awful, it's like every day you wake up and look at the news, there's another awful thing happening that this administration, this disgusting person is doing, and just relentlessly trying to beat people down, and you said in where is it? Oh, it's at the end of stage one. If you can't get the chemie degree, I'll get another one because I'll never let a mother like you beat me. And I feel like that's Trump. I feel like that's, society now. It's a whoever the mother is, right? Whether it's a psychiatrist or, the medical model or a dictator wannabe. Maybe for you that trust, I trust in him. Maybe that's part of how you're getting through this and not letting the mothers beat you.
It definitely is. I had come to some type of realization and I had gotten away from that and I'm getting more back to it. A lot of this stuff is illusion, The reality is what you dwell on and what's inside of you. And that's the whole crux of the fight in mental health is like, why are you comparing my reality to somebody else's reality? Why don't you give me a chance to figure my own out? I mean, you could help me with it. You could talk to me. We could go back and talk and figure out something, from what's bothering me, what traumatized me, what happened to me, not what are my symptoms.
Or what's wrong with you, right? Yeah, and
So
that's
you have to kind of tune that out. But I mean, right now it's so loud. I just kind of isolate, really. I really am. I don't know what to say.
Well, I know something that you can say. Can you please take us home by reading the last poem that you sent to us?
Okay.
Watusi Like Me poem. I would love to hear you read that.
Okay. This is the last poem in my memoir. This is sort of like my manifesto. It's called Watusi Like Me poem. It's a golden shovel poem after a Sonia Sanchez haiku. I can do the Watusi, I would say, like the little girl inside the woman claiming sisterhood to trees. No man is beholding to the outrageous complications of day. Thundercloud and bolt of light with like a surrounding forest mist of scented green. And the little girl grabs for her umbrella, but the woman is not afraid of catching the rain.
And the woman is not afraid. Not today.
You worse with it.
And it's all we can do. It's all we can do. And I am so, so grateful to you for working with it, for working through it, for spending some time with me. I'm just so grateful that you exist.
Thank you. I'm so glad I had the chance to meet you. It was really a great experience. And I remember fondly that that retreat. That was just so great. I'm still in touch with some of the people that were on that retreat. So
I love that. I love that. If we can do nothing else, making a human connection between me and you and the other women at the retreat, that's huge. So I'm very, very lucky and very, very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you again for joining us in conversation today. It's beautiful to see the progression of our contributors. Thank you so, so much to our guest today, Jacquese Armstrong. She is the author of Blues Legacy and Birthing Yourself Naturally, Motivational Reflections on a Mental Health Journey, and she has a new book out. It's a collection of essays and poems, and it's called Fabricating a Home, 'Cause You Never Had One. Before we leave you, we want to remind you to check out our website, recoverydiaries.org. There, like this podcast, you'll find additional stories, videos, and content about mental health, empowerment, and change. We look forward to continuing to grow our community. Thank you so much for being a part of it. We wouldn't be here without you. Be sure to join our mailing list so you never miss a podcast episode, essay, or film. I'm Gabe Nathan. Until next time, take good care.